She was last seen riding her bike, a small-town girl with big dreams. But what happened to Tara Calico remains a mystery that has haunted the New Mexico landscape for over 3 decades. Tara Calico's life was supposed to be simple. A 19-year-old college student at the time, Tara had a future ahead of her that seemed bright, full of promise, and ordinary. But on the fateful day of September 20th, 1988, Tara vanished without a trace, and her disappearance has remained unsolved for over 30 years. A case that starts with a morning bike ride ends up as one of the most chilling, perplexing disappearances in modern American history. It would evolve into a haunting mystery involving a series of strange clues, a possible abduction, and unending questions about who was responsible. Tara was last seen by her mother, Tara Calico, just before she went for her daily bike ride along a quiet rural road near her home in Belen, New Mexico. Tara had a routine. The 5'6" blonde with sparkling blue eyes was an active, energetic young woman who loved to ride her bike through the dusty roads, her trusty Walkman blasting her favorite tunes. She had just returned home from college for a break, and on that particular day, she had been planning on cycling the 36 miles to a nearby town, an adventure she had often done before, as Tara loved the sense of freedom that her bike rides gave her. But that afternoon, Tara never returned home. Her mother became frantic. She contacted the police, who launched a search, but they found no trace of Tara. No tire marks, no signs of struggle, nothing to explain her disappearance. It was as though she had simply vanished into thin air. 5 months passed, and the case seemed to be at a standstill. It was then that a clue emerged, one that sent shockwaves through the investigation in the small town of Belen. A photograph arrived at the local post office. It was a Polaroid snapshot that showed a young woman, looking eerily like Tara, bound and gagged. A man's hand was visible in the image, gripping the woman's arm as though he were holding her hostage. The picture, which appeared to be taken in a room, was disturbing, but the most chilling part was the background. It seemed to show a room with the same striped curtains and bedspread as Tara's bedroom. But it didn't stop there. The image raised more questions than it answered. Who was the woman in the photo? Was it Tara? Why was she bound and gagged? Was she alive? And, most hauntingly, if this was Tara, how had the photo gone to the post office? The case took another bizarre twist when it was revealed that the Polaroid had been sent anonymously, with no return address. Authorities tried to confirm the authenticity of the image, but were unable to definitively identify the woman. The case seemed to deepen into a labyrinth of unanswered questions, suspicions, and dead ends. For Tara's mother, Patty, it was a gut-wrenching feeling to look at the picture and know that it could be her daughter, but without solid evidence, she had no way to be sure. The authorities tried to piece together this cryptic clue, but couldn't find any leads that tied the photo directly to Tara's case. The only thing they knew for sure was that Tara was still missing. In a town like Belen, the whisper started almost immediately. Some residents believed the disappearance was the work of a stranger, a criminal who had been lying in wait. Others thought that Tara had run away, but her close relationship with her mother made that theory unlikely. Still, the idea persisted. Could Tara have staged her disappearance? As the investigation dragged on, the town became divided. Theories about the abduction swirled. Some suspected a local man, a known pedophile who had been in the area around the time of Tara's disappearance. Despite multiple interviews with him, no concrete evidence ever linked him to the crime, and others believed Tara's stepfather, John, might have been involved, although there was no proof to support this theory. Tara's mother stood by her husband, insisting that he had nothing to do with it. The Calicos were a tight-knit family, and Patty was convinced that someone outside their circle was responsible. But as days turned to months and then years, the case grew colder. No one could explain the mysterious Polaroid. No one could explain why Tara's bike, which had been parked by the side of the road during her ride, was left untouched, as though she had simply vanished into thin air. As years turned to decades, the case seemed to slip into obscurity. What happened to Tara Calico? Was she abducted by a stranger, Or is there something more sinister at play? Stay tuned as we dive deeper into the eerie twists and turns of this chilling case. If you have any information that could help solve this mystery, don't hesitate to reach out to the authorities. Your tip could be the key that brings closure to Tara's family. Over the years, various theories have emerged. One of the most plausible is that Tara was abducted by a man who had been keeping a close eye on her, waiting for the right moment to strike. But why Tara? Was she targeted? Or was she simply in the wrong place at the wrong time? Others have speculated that the man in the photo could have been involved in a larger criminal operation, possibly involving kidnapping or trafficking. Could Tara have been taken for some darker purpose? Her life changed forever in a way that remains hidden from the public eye? Then there's a theory that perhaps someone close to Tara had something to do with her disappearance. Could a jealous ex-boyfriend, a family friend, or someone in the community have been responsible for the abduction? The idea of a personal connection adds a layer of complexity to the investigation, as it suggests that the truth might be far closer to home than anyone had imagined. The biggest question remains: where is Tara? Is she still alive? Or did she meet a tragic end in some unknown location? These questions have lingered for over 3 decades, and with every passing year, the chances of finding answers grow slimmer. But even in the absence of concrete evidence, the Calico family holds on to hope. For them, the mystery of Tara's disappearance is not just a cold case. It is a never-ending fight for justice, for the truth, and for a resolution to the painful void left in their lives. As the years pass, the case of Tara Calico slipped further into obscurity. The mysterious Polaroid, though terrifying in its implications, remained the only concrete clue. Yet, without any verifiable leads or solid evidence linking it to her disappearance, the picture only deepened the mystery. Despite the lack of tangible results, Tara's family, especially her mother Patty, refused to give up hope. They pressed on with their own investigation, searching for any scrap of information that might bring them closer to the truth. But in the summer of 1990, 2 years after Tara's disappearance, a phone call to the local sheriff's department would ignite a small flicker of hope. The call came from a woman in Florida, thousands of miles away from New Mexico. She claimed she had seen a photograph that looked eerily similar to the Polaroid that had been sent to the Belen post office. This woman had been flipping through a photo album when she came across a picture of a young woman tied up and gagged, just like the one in the Polaroid. She was shocked. The resemblance was uncanny. She immediately contacted the sheriff's office in Florida, and from there, the investigation took a strange turn. After receiving the tip, investigators examined the Florida woman's photograph. It appeared to be an older, grainier version of the original Polaroid. Some investigators believe it was taken in the same location. The backdrop was unmistakably similar, including the striped curtains and bedspread. Could it be that someone had seen the original photo and decided to create a new, more sinister version to send to the police? This discovery led them to ask the inevitable question: who was behind the photo? Was the woman in the image truly Tara, or was it someone else entirely? For Tara's mother, the idea that the woman in the photograph could be her daughter was both comforting and devastating. If the woman in the photo was Tara, then perhaps she was still alive, somewhere out there, held captive by a stranger. The alternative, that Tara was dead, was simply too painful to contemplate. The investigation reached a standstill again, though, as no clear evidence could be gathered. The photograph, while deeply disturbing, was still not enough to make any firm conclusions. There were no fingerprints, no markings, and no direct leads that tied the photo to Tara. However, the case would soon take another unexpected turn, this time in the form of a chilling link to another unsolved crime. In 1990, another anonymous tip arrived. This one was from a man in California who claimed that he had seen the same photograph, the one with a woman tied up and gagged, posted on a bulletin board at a truck stop. The man noticed something that had eluded everyone before. The Polaroid seemed to include a boy, standing just behind the woman in the image. He was much younger, and appeared to be around 12 or 13 years old. This boy had a vague, almost generic face, Yet something about his presence in the photo struck the man as oddly familiar. The man said he immediately recognized the boy as being a missing person from California, a 12-year-old named Michael Henley. Michael had been missing for years, having vanished from a camping trip with his family in the early 1980s. This revelation sent the investigation into a frenzy. Could be that Tara and Michael had both been abducted by the same person, or perhaps they were victims of a larger criminal operation. For years, the link between Tara Calico and Michael Henley had been debated, but the investigators could never make a definitive connection between the two cases. While the theories surrounding their disappearances persisted, no one had ever been able to prove that the boy in the photograph was Michael Henley. In fact, Michael's remains were discovered in 1990, not far from the location where he had disappeared, but the link to Tara remained unconfirmed. Could this photograph have been the key to understanding what happened to Tara Calico? Was there truly a connection between Tara's disappearance and that of Michael Henley? And most chillingly, if the boy in the photo was Michael, does that mean that Tara was also held captive for years before being let go, or worse, killed? As we continue to uncover the dark twists and turns of this case, remember, every detail could be the one that finally brings justice to Tara's family. Don't leave this story unfinished. Stay with us as we explore the shocking developments in the next chapter. If you or anyone you know has any information about Tara Calico or the Polaroid photo, please reach out to the authorities. Your tip could be the key that unlocks the truth. With Michael Henley's remains found, the theories that once linked his case to Tara's disappearance seem to fade. Yet, the eerie Polaroid continued to be a source of intrigue. Did the photo capture a moment of captivity or something darker? Many believe it to be a deliberate ploy by the abductor to create confusion, to leave a trail of false hope. But the theories did not stop there. Another theory gained traction in the years following Tara's disappearance. Some investigators suggested that Tara may have been involved in an underground criminal ring. There was speculation that her abduction was not random but part of a larger scheme. This theory was fueled by the fact that Tara had been a promising, intelligent young woman, someone who could easily blend into society, disappear, and be used for a more insidious purpose. Yet again, no evidence surfaced to confirm this theory, and investigators were left to wonder if Tara's case was ever going to be solved. As the decades rolled by, Tara's family was left in a state of limbo. The Polaroid, the anonymous tips, the strange coincidences, everything remained unresolved. Are we getting closer to the truth, or is Tara's case destined to become another forgotten mystery? Kindly give this video a like and follow us into the next part of this investigation, where new clues and disturbing revelations may bring us closer to finding out what truly happened to Tara Calico. The years that followed Tara Calico's disappearance were marked by unrelenting frustration. Every lead that was followed seemed to fizzle out. Every theory, no matter how wild or grounded, ended in dead ends. The Polaroid remained an eerie symbol of the unknown, a snapshot frozen in time, but it didn't reveal the truth. The family's hope flickered, but it never quite extinguished. In 2008, nearly 2 decades after Tara vanished, an unexpected twist would ignite new hope. The Calico family received a tip from an individual claiming to have knowledge of Tara's abduction. The tipster described a location, one that was eerily close to where Tara had last been seen, and claimed that they had seen a woman matching Tara's description being held in captivity in a small, secluded compound. The tipster claimed that they had witnessed a woman several times, and described her as being confined in a locked room with barred windows, surrounded by a group of men who appeared to be in charge of her. Authorities launched an investigation into the compound described by the tipster, but once again, they found no trace of Tara. The location, which had once been a thriving area, was now abandoned, and there were no signs that anyone had been living there recently. Yet, investigators continued to dig, hoping that the lead would yield something substantial. While the tip was never fully verified, it wasn't the only odd clue that had surfaced over the years. In 2011, another anonymous source came forward, claiming that they had seen a woman matching Tara's description in a remote part of New Mexico, not far from the Mexican border. This time, The woman was said to be living with a group of people who had ties to criminal organizations involved in human trafficking. The source described her as being physically frail and disoriented but still alive. The investigators once again pursued this lead, but once again, they came up empty-handed. There were no signs of Tara, no evidence to suggest that she had been held captive, and no confirmation of the tipster's claims. With each new lead that came to light, a more disturbing theory began to take shape. Some investigators began to suspect that Tara's abduction was not an isolated incident, but part of a much larger, sinister network. Could she have been taken and sold into human trafficking? This theory gained traction as investigators began to look at similar disappearances of young women in the southwest United States and Mexico. It was speculated that Tara had been targeted by an underground group involved in the trafficking of young women, and that her disappearance was a carefully orchestrated plan to profit from her. The fact that Tara was an intelligent, attractive young woman with a future ahead of her made her an ideal target for such an operation, and the mysterious Polaroid, with its disturbing image of a bound and gagged woman, seemed to suggest that she had been forcibly taken, possibly for exploitation. While this theory seemed plausible, it was impossible to confirm without concrete evidence. Investigators tried to trace Tara's possible movements after her disappearance, reaching out to authorities in Mexico and even as far as Central America. Yet, no trace of her had ever been found. The theory, though chilling, remained just that, another unverified possibility in an ocean of unanswered questions. What happened to Tara Calico? Was she sold into the dark world of human trafficking, or did something else happen to her? The case may have grown cold, but it's not over. If you have any information that could help solve this mystery, it's time to speak up. The truth might be closer than we think. Keep following this investigation as we uncover the most chilling new developments in the case of Tara Calico's disappearance. Despite the growing years and the mounting frustration, Tara's mother, Tara Calico, never gave up. The pain of not knowing what happened to her daughter was a constant weight that she carried. She became a vocal advocate for missing persons, speaking out about the pain of having a loved one vanish without explanation. Through the years, Patty continued to search for answers, never fully accepting that her daughter's case will remain unsolved forever. In 2019, a breakthrough occurred that added a new layer of hope. The FBI released new images of the Polaroid photograph, hoping that someone might recognize the people in the photo. The FBI's release of these new images sparked renewed interest in the case. With the rise of social media and online forums, a new generation of amateur sleuths began to pore over the photographs, searching for clues, for connections, for any hint that might finally unlock the truth. One of these sleuths, a former FBI profiler, began to study the psychological aspects of the case. She argued that the abductor or abductors must have had some personal connection to Tara. The fact that the photograph had been sent anonymously, with no clear motive or explanation, indicated that the perpetrators had a twisted desire to torment Tara's family by keeping them in the dark. This theory, though speculative, reignited public interest in the case. And once again, the idea of Tara being alive was placed at the forefront of the investigation. Could she have been released? Could she be living under a new identity, somewhere, unaware of the people still searching for her? Even after all these years, the case of Tara Calico is far from over. Each new lead, each new theory, and each new discovery brings us one step closer to the truth. Could Tara still be out there? Could the person responsible for her disappearance still be hiding in plain sight? Join us as we continue to investigate this haunting case, and stay tuned for the final discovery, where we uncover the most recent developments and possibly the last chilling clue in the search for Tara Calico. Today, Tara Calico's case remains an open investigation. Despite the efforts of the police, the FBI, and countless volunteers, the truth of what happened to her remains elusive. As time goes on, the possibility of finding Tara grows smaller, but her story continues to captivate people from all over the world. The case stands as a reminder that sometimes the most frightening mysteries are the ones that remain unsolved, leaving a trail of questions that may never be answered. For Tara's family, The hope of finding her never fades. But as they continue to search, they are haunted by the knowledge that the truth may be just out of reach, and that they may never get the closure they so desperately need.